I'm so excited to get back started with this book. Oh, I ordered that book that other lady was talking about last night. I don't know if you heard the book that she was talking about, Linda. Let me go back and hey, Raina. Let me see. It's so good to see you again. Okay, it's called hold on. It's called Losing Your Pounds of Pain. And I went ahead and ordered it. And this is something that we can read next time, but it says, Lighten Your Body and Spirit. Doreen Virtue has written a wonderful book that will truly help you break the damaging connection between emotional pain and overeating. As a result, many years of therapeutic work with hundreds of clients, Dr. Virtue came to understand how various degrees of psychological and physical abuse caused her clients to turn to food for comfort, security, and even self punishment. Although many were convinced that once they lost their excessive weight, their pain would cease to exist, just the opposite was actually true. First, they had to lose their pain, then their weight would normalize. I had never heard of it either. She mentioned it last night, so I was like, why not? I mean, we're going through all different books on this channel about like healing from your past trauma. And another thing is I came up with a few like catchy, fun group names, and I might actually change the name of the YouTube channel, but I want to signify the channel being like growth and healing from past trauma from narcissistic abuse. So I have some really good ones in mind. I don't want to use the word daughters because I want men to feel welcome to come as well. But I was thinking echoes to empowerment, the healing haven, shattered and stronger, bloom after rain, breaking the cycle, golden dawn, rooted and rising. So those are some of the names that I had ChatGPT like help me come up with. And I like I said, ultimately I'd like to change my YouTube name to that to kind of get away from the Vivian the pet stylist situation, because that's who I was before, but it's not who I want to continue to be as part of my brand online. I'd like to get away from that. While I probably will still share like a lot of the things that I do with dog grooming, I don't want that to be my entire identity. And I feel like I made a huge mistake when I came online and really only shared information about grooming, and I wasn't really sharing information about who Vivian was as a person. And because of that, I'm like, I have been like locked in to this dog groomer niche that I'm like trying to fight my way out of now. And I think changing my name on my socials is going to be a good way to help break out of that identity and shift into another one. So thank you so much for coming, you guys. So if I'll put them on my YouTube channel like as a post, and you can vote for the one that you like the best, and the one that gets the most votes will ultimately switch the name of the channel to that. But I'd like for this to be a collaborative effort because we're all in this together. And then once we choose the name, then I will create a Facebook group so that afterwards, whenever I'm not live, we can all collectively get together in the Facebook group and chat with one another and support one another even further in the Facebook group. Because I am only like, I can only go live a certain amount of time per day while I'm still running my business until I hire somebody to help me with the business. And I'd really like um to be able to have more time, um and until I do get that extra time, it's it's difficult for me to spend a lot of time on live and like engaging with you all. So I feel like having the group will allow us to feel a little more connected, even if I'm not going live like every day. You know what I'm saying? Um and I really appreciate everybody who is here. If you are new to my channel, yes, I am a dog groomer, but that's not the entire platform that I have. I talk about narcissistic abuse, domestic abuse, drug, alcohol abuse, and recovery, and how to heal from narcissistic trauma that was induced by your primary parent, which mine was my mother. So if you have been abused by your mother and want to learn how to cope a little bit better and heal from some of those traumas that you had to endure as a daughter of a narcissistic mother, that's what I like to talk about, and that's how I like to help others. I think that I was put on this earth in order to help others. I always felt like a sense of, you know how when you meet somebody, it, and they just like start telling you all about their lives. People have always felt really comfortable with me like that, just to like talk to me about everything that's going on with them, past traumas, things that are going on with them right now. And I feel like it was always like, why are people doing that? Why are people so comfortable talking to me? And that should have been like a sign for me to understand that they feel comfortable coming to me because that's something that I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm supposed to help others, and that's why the universe keeps bringing me people to coach, to help, to mentor, to support, all of those things. So I finally had an aha moment, and I was like, yes, I love my job. I love working with dogs, but I think I'm supposed to be helping humans too. I can still help dogs, but I think I'm supposed to be helping humans, and just letting people tell me their stories and supporting them in the ways that I am able to support them. So let's get on with oh, shoot. Let's get on with the book. Tonight we are going. Do they feel comfortable talking to you as well? It's so crazy. There's nobody else here right now unless I can't see them. That's crazy because people have always like, people will call me to make appointments for their dog, and they'll start trauma dumping on me, and I'm like, what? Like, why are you talking to me about this stuff right now? Aren't you trying to schedule your dog for a grooming session? So I am very, very ecstatic about the fact that people feel like I am somebody that is trustworthy and honest and compassionate and empathetic, and they feel comfortable talking to me. And I want to be able to help those people. So moving forward, that's what I'm going to focus on. Again, I will still be posting like a little bit of dog grooming content, but it's not going to be the entirety of my channel anymore. I have too. I've always been a really good listener, a really good listener. And it's it might have a little bit to do with the fact that nobody ever really gave me the opportunity to talk. They just always talk to me. It's taken me a little while to like open up and feel comfortable talking to people, but for a very long time, I didn't feel comfortable telling people about the things that I had been through, and my hopes, dreams, aspirations, and all those things, and the trauma that I had experienced. I didn't feel comfortable. But other people talking to me, I always felt comfortable, listening. So I think that that's probably another reason why the universe is always like sending me people to listen to, because maybe through listening to their stories, I've been able to grow and heal myself and learn so that I don't make the same mistakes that they did. I think that everybody comes into our life to teach us some sort of a lesson. Sometimes we don't always know what that lesson is right away, but I do feel like every person who has come into my life, good or bad, has taught me some of the most valuable lessons in life. I do feel like I wish I didn't have to get hurt so much in order to learn those lessons, but through the pain of those experiences, I am now a stronger, wiser, smarter person. I am also a way better listener than I am a talker. You've got me talking right now, but my fire dies out really quickly. Like, I can only keep a conversation going for a short amount of time unless it's a topic that I'm really comfortable talking about. And I I don't like to talk about myself a lot because it feels self-absorbed to me. It feels selfish. I do like to be able to give and take in a conversation. So if I'm asking questions, I like for them to ask questions to me, or for us to just banter back and forth. But for a while, it was, me being the listener and not really the talker. So I have learned how to integrate communicating a little bit more vocally so that I'm also a part of the conversation and it's not just them bombarding me with what they want to say. I'm going to grab my coloring book because this chapter is an hour long. So I feel like I'll need the coloring book just in case. And let me know if you can hear it.
Third-degree mother hunger. After a few years of working closely with women suffering from mother hunger, I recognized a diverse spectrum for this injury. While mother hunger is universally unpleasant for everyone, some forms of mother hunger are worse than others. Warning: this chapter uncovers what happens when daughters experience maternal cruelty. If this is not your story, you might want to skip this section. If you survived an abusive mother, this chapter is for you. It will validate your despair.
So, did you hear her? She said, if you survived an abusive mother, this chapter is going to be for us. So, just hearing that small little bit lets me know that this is going to be another really informative chapter. Hey, Flynn.
But it will also be hard to read. Healing, identifying, understanding, and remembering can be as painful as the original abuse. Judy and Edith. Third-degree mother hunger came to life on the big screen in two award-winning performances of iconic women who brought song into our hearts. Renee Zellweger as Judy Garland in the 2019 Oscar-winning Judy, and Marion Cotillard as Edith Piaf in 2007 La Vie en Rose. Both incredible movies vividly depict two girls who experienced maternal cruelty and abandonment in the first 24 months of life. Born to women who didn't want them, who couldn't care for them, they each suffered immensely as they made their way in life. Tragically, and with an eerie similarity. They both died very young. Judy Garland, the beloved Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, died at age 47 from complications related to alcohol and drugs. Edith Piaf, sometimes referred to as the French Judy Garland, also died at age 47 from liver complications related to drugs and alcohol. In their short, troubled lives, both women struggled immeasurably as they married and divorced numerous times, made and lost money, and battled health problems, including addictions. At age 11, Judy Garland, quote, sang like a woman 3 times her age with a broken heart, end of quote. Edith Piaf, beloved by the French people, also had a hauntingly mature voice as a child. Singing on the streets by age 7, she captured the hearts of passersby. Judy's parents were vaudeville entertainers who already had 2 daughters and didn't want another baby. When they discovered a new pregnancy, they searched for someone to perform an abortion without success. Judy came into a cold, harsh world, void of nurturance and protection. She was rehearsing and performing with her sisters by the age of 3, and as early as age 10, her mother was supplying her with diet pills during the day and sedatives at night to keep her compliant. Judy shared a poignant story about her mother's guidance with Barbara Walters. Quote, she'd say, "You get out there and sing, or I'll wrap you around the bedpost and break you off short." End of quote. Like Judy, Edith was born to an entertainer, a street singer, who wasn't ready to be a mother. As a baby, Edith was left with her old and failing maternal grandmother. Edith nearly died from complications of meningitis and starvation. Eventually, a relative found her covered in lice and took her to live with her paternal grandmother, who ran a brothel. Although not a place we typically think of as suitable for a young girl, there she found the first comfort she had ever known. A young woman working as a prostitute took Edith under her wing and gave her affection and tenderness. But at the age of 7, her first loving bond ended abruptly and tragically when her father came and took her away to tour and perform in the circus with him.
In the circus.
Without the shelter of maternal care, both girls were vulnerable to the men around them. Luis Mayer, the MGM studio director, had too much access to Judy's upbringing. He restricted her food, nicknamed her my little hunchback, making fun of her curved spine, and sexually molested her. Similarly, Edith endured sexual violations from her biological father. Like Judy, Edith's posture was never quite right, as she also had a curved spine. She suffered frequent hunger and chronic neglect, and by the age of 17, she left her father and the circus to make her own way, singing on the streets of Paris. In an interview, Judy Garland shared that, quote, "The only time I felt wanted when I was a kid was when I was on the stage performing," end of quote, and referred to her mother as, quote, "the true Wicked Witch of the West." Similarly, Edith Piaf thrived with audience feedback that gave her a sense of belonging. She bloomed when a nightclub owner discovered her and brought her onto a stage. At the age of 18, her career was just beginning when she became pregnant and gave birth to a baby girl. Repeating her mother's love, she routinely abandoned her daughter for the stage, leaving mothering duties to the baby's father. Tragically, her daughter died from meningitis just before the age of 2. Similarly, Judy experienced early pregnancy. She had her first abortion at age 19.
Oh my gosh.
And a second before giving birth to her first daughter at 23. In the first of many suicide attempts, Judy slashed her throat when she was 28. using a broken glass bottle. She enacted the epigenetic legacy of a mother who wanted to cut her baby from her body. She shared that she lost her self-confidence and all she wanted to do was eat and hide. Judy went on to have 5 unhappy marriages, the last one to a man 20 years younger. Edith Piaf's last husband, after many unhappy relationships, was also 20 years younger than she was. Both women were dependent on drugs and alcohol throughout their lives, and despite the income that followed fame, they struggled with homelessness and debt. Both had nightmarish physical health problems that included hepatitis, exhaustion, kidney ailments, quote, nervous breakdowns, weight fluctuations, and multiple physical injuries. As an adult, Judy grew so compromised that she missed performances, showed up late, or walked onto the stage fueled by drugs and alcohol. Adoring fans lost respect for her. On one occasion, she was booed off the stage while people threw food. The only place she had ever felt loved became a nightmare. Like Judy, Edith's last performances were a desperate display of health problems and addiction. High on morphine and alcohol, she struggled to stand up and remember her songs. Despite a sad end, her death was mourned across France as thousands lined the route of her funeral procession.
Hold on. I got a violation, so I think I'm going to end on TikTok and come right back. I don't know what the violation was for. Okay.
Complex trauma. Like Judy Garland and Edith Piaf, women with extreme forms of mother hunger have symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, differs from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, because it is caused by repeated trauma. When little ones endure parental abuse, the incidents are rarely a singular event, and the childhood trauma is ongoing. The prolonged nature of this kind of adversity creates challenging, enduring symptoms that may not go away because living with constant fear changes the brain during rapid growth periods. In Judith Herman's research on complex post-traumatic stress disorder, she documents adults receiving psychiatric treatment, noting that, quote, survivors of childhood abuse display significantly more insomnia, sexual dysfunction, dissociation, anger, suicidality, self-mutilation, drug addiction, and alcoholism than other patients. End of quote. If you grew up with a mother who was cruel and frightening, her behavior required your autonomic nervous system to stay in overdrive. Under constant threat, developing brain pathways meant for social behavior took a back seat to the pathways meant for safety. Unused neurons became weaker and less able to carry signals that govern attention and mood regulation. At the same time, pathways designed for self-preservation gained strength to keep you alert for signs of danger. Complex trauma explains why you were wound up, energetic, anxious, or irritable as a child, and may still feel this way as an adult. Like someone anticipating a blow, your body and mind are wired for war. When you understand that your nervous system has been shaped by early ongoing fear and that your body is doing its job to protect you, it can be very empowering. Reactions that might cause you to feel ashamed and different from others begin to make sense. You are not broken. Your body is simply biologically wired in protective mode, and responds very quickly
Hold on.
below your awareness to anything that is a reminder of childhood abuse.
Okay.
In other words, you don't choose a reaction.
Yeah, have fun.
It may be extreme or frightening to yourself and others. Your response is automatic and somatic, based in the body. While brain neuroplasticity offers the possibility to change and heal these reactions, adults with CPTSD face a more rigorous healing process than those with milder forms of mother hunger. For this reason, I give extreme forms of mother hunger, like these, a separate name. A name that captures what it's like to survive the complete loss of maternal nurturance, protection, or guidance. A name to illuminate the barren landscape of chronic fear and isolation. A name for a painful relational burn. The legacy of maternal abuse is what I call third-degree mother hunger. Third-degree mother hunger shares symptoms with personality disorders like borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and dissociative identity disorder. But I don't consider third-degree mother hunger a disorder. It's a profound attachment injury that creates a constellation of symptoms that make life unbearable. Patterns of relationship instability, idealizing someone one moment, but in the next experiencing the same person as cruel, are normal for those with third-degree mother hunger. Fear of abandonment, difficulty sleeping, eating disorders, mood problems, and difficulty finding meaning in life are all part of complex post-traumatic stress and third-degree mother hunger. Addiction to something or someone can feel like a life raft. So can suicidal thoughts and self-harm.
Love you.
As adults,
Have fun.
women
Be
with third-degree
safe.
mother hunger often suffer physical symptoms as well as psychological symptoms of trauma. Physical symptoms may include chronic back and neck pain, fibromyalgia, migraines, digestive problems, spastic colon or irritable bowel syndrome, allergies, thyroid and other endocrine disorders, chronic fatigue, and some forms of asthma. These symptoms may explain some of the remarkable increases in medical issues uncovered by Dr. Filiti in the original ACE study. For those with third-degree mother hunger, there is no body-based experience of comfort or safety because the person designed to be our source of comfort became our source of fear. Misunderstood signs of complex trauma. Although some mothers are cruel, it's my belief that maternal cruelty is not a calculated desire to hurt one's child. Abusive mothers have often endured their own trauma that is inherited, passed from one generation to the next. However, if you're the daughter of a cruel mother, the reason she was mean doesn't matter much to the little girl inside you. It never made sense while you were growing up, and it may not make sense now. It just feels awful. Even if you understand that your mother's cruelty wasn't purposeful, the pain she caused you is real, it's deep, and it needs repair.
Me too.
Third-degree mother hunger comes from having a compromised mother who frightened you during the years you depended on her. Instead of nurturing, protecting, or guiding you, she yelled, hit, shamed, or abandoned you. As a result, your relationship with yourself and others is devastated. Terrible mood swings startle you and anyone close to you. You have periodic bursts of energy, but no direction for it. Nights are scary and sleep is difficult. Inside, you carry a haunting confusion about your basic needs and wants and a deep feeling of homelessness that creates a burning need for emotional escape. Mystified by the constellation of behaviors that mimic personality disorders, well-meaning professionals aren't always able to help. Perhaps you found temporary relief from a clinical diagnosis or medication, but it rarely lasts. This is because a diagnosis of a personality disorder misses the original wound underneath your behaviors. Without a sensitive, well-trained response to the root cause of your reactivity, you'll wake up with disturbing, relentless symptoms. You still have signs of heartbreak that no one else can see and no one wants to talk about. Surviving a dangerous mother is an unspeakable trauma that is difficult to recognize. Perhaps we can't see it because deep inside each of us is a little person who remembers the vulnerability of being totally dependent. And the idea that a mother could betray this dependency is terrifying. It strikes a primitive fear in our mammal brain. The helplessness and devastation of life with third-degree mother hunger is why I believe that having a dangerous, frightening mother is the worst childhood adversity of all. Betrayal. We know that kids who experience horrifying events and adversity don't all develop symptoms of traumatic stress. And that's because of one determining factor. If a familiar, consistent adult can help make sense of what's happening, kids can tolerate adversity. But when a mother is the source of fear, her love is the traumatic event. And there is no way to make sense of this. Danger fuses with love. Instincts for self-preservation surrender to the overarching need for bonding, creating what's known as a betrayal bond with the mother. When a mother's love is threatening, your body remembers the pain at a molecular level. An abusive mother generates traumatic stress because your coping capacity becomes overwhelmed and you are too young to protect yourself.
Because we don't know how.
Since a mother's love is your primary defense from adversity, when she is the threat, her care is a profound relational betrayal. To bond with an unkind mother, our merciful imagination works overtime to create a different mother from the one we have. We create one who loves us, one who is taking care of us, one who isn't betraying our vulnerability. Our brain designs a different mother to help us cope with constant fear. Sadly, in service to bonding, these necessary brain changes create long-term personality problems. Surviving third-degree mother hunger may have left you with automatic dissociative patterns, chronic shame, and the propensity to land in relationships with others who betray you. Acknowledging abuse. Describing an abusive mother is not easy. We don't like to think of mothers who hurt their children. The idea is so abhorrent that our collective denial protects us from the knowledge that it happens. Periodically, we read tragedies of maternal neglect in the news or see a movie where a destructive mother is portrayed, but for the most part, we deny that mothers harm their daughters. Frequently, women send me emails after learning about third-degree mother hunger, describing their own experience of it. Here's one. Quote, I feel like I should be happy, but I'm not. I feel an ache and a deep, deep sorrow for what never was and never will be.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to remember. And
when I started doing therapy, and specifically therapy for, not having the relationship that I wanted with my mother, and being a little jealous whenever I would see like mother and daughters out, having a good time and like laughing together and like enjoying each other's company. I would get really jealous, and it would hurt my feelings that that was what I wanted all my life and I never got. And so the therapist and I worked together, and what she explained to me was that I needed to have a funeral. I needed to grieve the loss of the mother that I always wanted. Like, I needed to grieve that, because in grieving the knowing of not ever having the mother that I wanted, I could finally come to terms with knowing that that was just never going to happen. It was never going to happen. And I had a funeral for that relationship. I also had a funeral for the desire of wanting that relationship and it never coming to fruition, because she's a narcissist and everything is all about her, and she's incapable of having real relationship with somebody else without manipulating the situation. So there was a lot of processing those emotions through the grief counseling, through the funeral, so to speak, and writing down like what kind of mother would I have wanted, and going over those characteristics, because once you realize like what type of mother you wanted to have, then you can then start to give that to yourself. Right, we're sad, we're upset, we're angry that we didn't get the mother that we deserve, the mother that we wanted, the mother that we craved to have. But that doesn't mean that because our mothers didn't give it to us that we can't have that. We can have that. We now have to give it to ourselves by reparenting ourselves in the way that we would have wanted our mothers to parent us. And go like I said, going through that therapy, going through that process, it was a very emotional process, and it took a while for me to actually get through it all, but it was very cathartic, very healing, very energetic, and it helped me come to terms with what it was that I what it was that I thought I wanted that I didn't get, and how I could then, my mother is still alive, how I could give that to myself. My mother and I have been no contact since 2018. In 2018, I set a very firm boundary that her and the rest of my family crossed. And I told them, if you cross this boundary, this is going to end our relationship. Like, I'm not going to have a relationship with you any longer. And they crossed the boundary, I guess, not thinking that I would actually follow through with cutting off contact. And so I did. I cut off contact. I haven't had any contact with my mother. I did send her an email in 2018 asking her and kind of explaining to her like how I feel like she could have been a better mother to me, and the type of mother that I needed, the type of mother that I wished I had, and the mother that she was, and how harmful her actions and her behaviors were to me as a growing person. And when I sent her that email, she proceeded to send me an email disregarding everything that I had said and just mustering off all the things that I had done wrong in my life, not even trying to give me any sort of apology or anything of that sort. So once I realized like this woman does not think that she's done anything wrong. She does not think that I am owed an apology. She thinks she did the best that she could do, and that might have been the best that she could do. But even though it was the best that she could do, it still wasn't good enough. It still wasn't what I needed. It wasn't what my sisters needed, and she failed to give us what we needed. And her inability to be accountable for that and actually apologize for that was the reason why I decided like I'm no longer going to be in contact with them. I have two sisters. Both of my sisters have the same father. I have a different father, so it's like I'm an only child, but I have the same mother. Like we have the same mother. So yeah, there's my little rant. Sorry.
Know that I'm lovable, even though I wasn't loved. I feel profoundly sad and alone, while simultaneously celebrating my own ability to mother, love, nurture. It feels like a hidden aching and a gaping wound that I should be over by now, but that I will carry within all the days of my life. Or this one, quote, my own mother burned me at the stake and blames me for lighting the fire. Long story. I haven't had contact in over a decade. I wish the pain would go away. For purposes of understanding and healing third-degree mother hunger, it's helpful to talk about different types of abuse because for many of you, these behaviors might seem normal. It's impossible to develop new protective skills if you aren't aware of how you were hurt and where you need help. Emotional abuse. Defining emotional abuse is complicated because we can't actually see the injury. To start, let's think of what we've already covered about infant needs. Since inadequate nurturance and protection changes brain structures, their absence is harmful. Lack of nurturance and protection is neglectable, and neglect is a form of emotional abuse.
See, neglect.
Neglect is sometimes a quiet form of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It's not obvious because it happens privately. This explains why it can take decades to identify, understand, and recover from this type of emotional abuse. As we covered in Chapter 7, when a mother treats her daughter as a friend, this is also a form of emotional abuse. A mother who tells her child, quote, you're everything to me. I don't know what I'd do without you, end of quote, isn't mothering. She's creating a confusing emotional bind for her child. The child hears these words and might feel special. I'm the favorite, which feels great at first, but sets her up for disappointment and alienates her from the rest of the family. She might also feel afraid. Is mom okay? Or excessively dutiful. I belong to mom. It's my job to protect her and keep her happy. This child may grow up to feel she's betraying her mother if she has other interests or friends or wants to move away. Verbal insults are noisy forms of emotional abuse. Cruel comments such as, quote, I wish you'd never been born, or you're stupid, impact the body like a physical slap. More subtle, nuanced forms of emotional abuse, like a dismissive glance or a rejecting hug, are challenging to identify, but leave a scar because it's the most fundamental form of rejection. When a mother rejects or degrades her daughter, there may be no witness. Being left alone to make sense of negative feelings intensifies the injury. Emotionally abusive mothers rarely repair the hurt they cause, and the lack of acknowledgement is what causes an enduring psychological trauma. The definition of trauma comes from a Greek word that means wound, an injury to the body, mind, or spirit. Body, mind, and spirit are all involved with emotions. Obviously, we can't see an injury to the mind or spirit the way we can see a cut or bruise. Emotional trauma is difficult to quantify for this exact reason.
But that doesn't
But
mean it's
emotional
not there.
abuse is psychologically traumatic because it betrays a fundamental role of parenting. It violates trust. Without the ability to trust a mother's love, daughters have no idea how to love themselves. Missing an emotional safety net, the developing young brain focuses on finding safety elsewhere instead of playing, relaxing, or bonding with others. In this way, an emotionally abusive mother distorts her daughter's inner life, creating personality adaptations that may bring on future trouble. For example, girls with abusive mothers have difficulty making friends. They struggle to trust. Prolonged activation of the stress response system from lack of trust disrupts developing brain architecture, making it difficult to manage emotions, moods, and thoughts. Girls with third-degree mother hunger feel unsafe and act like it. Sometimes cold and brittle, other times childlike and docile. Women with third-degree mother hunger have frozen, fractured emotional development. This explains why daughters of abusive mothers may be unpredictable or untrustworthy. Reacting to life with the mind of someone young and afraid is the legacy of abuse, not an indication of character or value. Physical abuse. Physical contact between a mother and daughter is part of nurturance. A mother's touch is as necessary as food. But when a mother's touch is disrespectful or aggressive, it leaves a damaging impact that can last a lifetime. The case of Caroline is a good example. As a little girl, Caroline remembers being afraid that she might drown when her mother washed her hair.
Aw.
She says, quote, "The water was up my nose, I couldn't breathe, but she kept holding my head under." End of quote. Caroline cried out and protested, but it didn't stop her mother's aggression. As an adult, Caroline has difficulty washing her own hair and typically goes many days without bathing. She also avoids medical care. She has an intense fear of hospitals and needles. Caroline suffered multiple childhood illnesses and remembers waking up on doctor days with a heavy feeling, her body tight and cold. She hated the antiseptic smell of the clinic. And the moment she got inside, she would begin to panic, scanning for an escape. But her mother would firmly grip her arm. "Stop worrying," she would insist, tightening her hold. Let's pause for a moment here. Think of the last time you were scared. Did it help when someone told you to stop worrying? Caroline remembers looking up at her mother's face, seeing furrowed brows, pursed lips, and a cold stare. "Behave. You're embarrassing me," her mother growled. On one particular visit, when the doctor arrived, Caroline broke free of her mother's grasp. She couldn't remember where she was going, only that she was running. Her mother caught up with her and spanked her in the middle of the clinic hall. Recalling this incident in a session, Caroline's mind goes blank, even as her eyes fill with tears. Her resourceful brain dissociates to escape the still, raw pain. I cover her lap with a gravity blanket and sit quietly on the floor beside her. After a few moments, the body begins to settle. When her breathing returns to normal, I get up and slowly begin gentle eye movement desensitization, EMDR, to help her metabolize the terror stuck in
EMDR therapy is what my therapist helped talk me into and through. And you can literally do EMDR therapy anywhere. So once you get like the pattern down and like understand how to utilize EMDR therapy, you can do it while you're driving down the road. You can do it when you're sitting in a doctor's office waiting to be seen. You can utilize EMDR therapy anywhere. It's really awesome. If you don't know anything about EMDR therapy, I can add a link for that so that you can look it up on your own time. And if you don't know a lot about it, I can go over it with you like in another live and just show you how to do it so that you can try to utilize it at home on your own. It is a really great way to help yourself through anxiety and trauma without hiring a, a therapist, because everyone knows like therapy is expensive. So if therapy is not something that you're able to budget into your finances at this time, EMDR therapy is a great way for you to utilize therapy techniques without having to pay for it.
In her body. Caroline's mother's aggressive, intrusive handling would qualify as physical abuse by any measure and created a third-degree relational burn that Caroline is to this day working to heal. Spanking. For a long time, spanking has been considered an appropriate way to train a child. But finally, this is ending. While spanking might appear effective in the short term, there's no existing study to support the idea that spanking or physical pain leads to long-term positive outcomes. The research suggests that parents who spank their children are actually unable to regulate their own emotions. Spanking is a shortcut, an emotional bypass from parental discomfort, anger, or helplessness. Parents justify spanking in all kinds of ways, but it is an abuse of power.
Yes, it is.
Spanking leads to fear, aggression, humiliation, and withdrawal in children. Spanking a child is the opposite of nurturing, protecting, or guiding. In a study of children exposed to routine painful medical procedures, such as allergy shots or blood draws, the anticipatory distress before the painful procedure intensified pain and anxiety. From this study, it's understandable that when a child expects a spanking, anticipatory distress becomes part of the overwhelming experience. When spankings are frequent, a child may develop anticipatory distress as she predicts or awaits the abuse. She gets jittery, jumpy, or withdrawn. Stomach aches and headaches are normal. During a spanking, physiological reactions such as heart pounding, vomiting, and even loss of bowel or bladder control can occur. Spanking creates toxic stress for a child and for the siblings who watch, eroding trust and safety in a family. Children who are spanked suffer long-term symptoms such as depression, anxiety, and emotional distress. If you were spanked as a child, you may feel disgusted by your body. It may be difficult to care for yourself, including pursuing medical care, dental care, regular exercise, and healthy nutrition, because your body has been a battleground. You may find it validating to know that the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that parents avoid spanking children for any reason. And some researchers are fighting to include spanking on the list of adverse childhood experiences.
I didn't get spanked. I got
Sexual
beaten.
abuse. I don't think anyone is confused about what sexual abuse is. However, we assume that most mothers protect their daughters from such violations.
No, they
It's
don't.
unimaginable that a mother could participate in sexually endangering her daughter. We know that childhood sexual abuse leads to many forms of addiction and self-destructive behavior. And more than the abuse itself, women mourn the fact that no one protected them. Their mothers didn't help them, or in some cases, refused to believe them, particularly when the offending person was someone the mother loved. Mothers who turn the other way when their boyfriends, their husbands, or their own parents sexually violate their daughters are part of the abuse. We may be aware that sexual abuse happens to little girls, but the fact that a mother could be the perpetrator is unthinkable. In her book, Mother's Touch, Julie Brand writes about being molested by her mother. She talks about how her mother fondled her during nap time. The abuse felt strange, but because there was no force, she never considered it abuse. But the long-term enduring impact of sexual abuse isn't just about physical pain. Not all sexual abuse physically hurts. Mothers who misuse their daughters for affection and touch they need are at risk for this type of abuse. When pain is involved, the offense is clear. Julie Brand shares about the humiliating weekly enemas she was forced to endure.
Oh my God.
Quote, I would have to strip naked and lie face down on my stomach on a bath towel on the linoleum floor. I remember her holding me firmly with the weight of her foot on my back. She would not let me get up until she decided that I had endured enough. End of quote. Violations of a sexual nature often lead to a full rejection of one's sexuality or risky sexual behavior. Battered women syndrome. Intimate relationships marked by frequent rage explosions are frightening places to be.
That's
Psychotherapist Lenore Walker developed the concept of battered women syndrome in the late 1970s to describe the unique behaviors and emotions that develop when a person experiences abuse at the hands of an intimate partner. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, victims of domestic violence share symptoms that may include some of the following: feeling isolated, anxious, depressed, or helpless, feeling embarrassed of judgment and stigmatization, feeling love for the person harming them and believing they will change, feeling emotionally withdrawn and lacking support from family and friends, denying that anything is wrong or excusing the person who's abusing them, having moral or religious reasons for staying in the relationship. Since a mother is our first intimate partner and she has access to our body at all times, her cruelty is a form of domestic violence. If she handles us aggressively or directs her rage at us, we experience unimaginable terror.
I didn't even recognize
Carrying
that
symptoms like the
as
victims
domestic
of intimate
violence.
partner violence, we struggle to make friends or find a place to belong. We feel inherently bad. Almost unanimously, victims of partner violence believe domestic abuse is their fault. Daughters of abusive mothers do too. Little girls with abusive mothers rarely talk about the abuse. In fact, they generally don't identify abusive maternal behavior at all. It just feels normal. Adaptations to intimate violence change the brain's ability to make sense of what's happening by prioritizing safety over learning and communicating. Psychobiological adaptations to fear brought on by maternal abuse can be long-lasting, complicating relationships for a daughter throughout her life. The NCADV explains how a person who has been through intimate partner abuse will have symptoms long after leaving the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Symptoms of domestic violence include sleep problems, intrusive flashbacks, and feelings of terror, avoiding topics or situations that are reminders, feelings of hopelessness, rage, and worthlessness, and panic attacks. Daughters with third-degree mother hunger share these symptoms. They idealize the abuser, their mother. They believe they deserve the abuse and suffer a humiliating loss of self-worth. Some professionals use the term pathological accommodation to describe what happens when a child learns to survive abuse. Accommodating and appeasing a frightening mother is an adaptation to inescapable fear.
Yeah, I think that's
While tending
considered
to
like
an
a
abusive
freeze
mother's
situation
moods,
too.
a daughter loses access to her own sensations and agency. Pathological accommodation is the biological freeze response in action, which may explain the physical ailments that accompany third-degree mother hunger. A body that is frozen hurts. Disorganized attachment, the lost attachment style. Women with third-degree mother hunger rarely felt safely attached to anyone growing up. Early on, they adapted to a frightening mother, and the bond was traumatic. Trauma bonds, strong emotional attachments between an abused person and her abuser, form when the human neural pathway for danger and attachment are activated simultaneously and damage the attachment system. When a traumatic bond forms between a mother and her daughter, this toxic connection impacts all other relationships in the daughter's life. Fear destroys the attachment system, creating disorganized attachment, or third-degree mother hunger. Disorganized attachment is the potent legacy of a harmful mother. In Chapter 2, we talked about the attachment categories secure, anxious, and avoidant that come from Mary Ainsworth's important research. Ainsworth actively measured John Bowlby's principles of attachment by examining reunion behavior between caregivers and toddlers in her now famous experiment called Strange Situation. In a later study, Ainsworth's student Mary Main found signs of a fourth attachment category. Main noticed how some children without secure attachment behaved differently than their anxious or avoidant peers when their mother left and re-entered the room. When the mother returned, these little ones would first run toward her, but then pull or run away. Some curled up in a ball or hit the mother. The first impulse to seek comfort is evident, but as the mother approached, the child became afraid. These children were disorganized and disoriented, as demonstrated by wandering, confused expressions, or freezing. Judy Garland and Edith Piaf were both living with disorganized attachment. Their symptoms followed them into adulthood and grew more intense with time and lack of therapeutic intervention. As both women raged at lovers, threw tantrums in restaurants, and struggled to hold on to successful careers. When life gets intense, women with third-degree mother hunger melt or rage. Melting or collapsing is a freeze response. Raging is the fight or flight response. Certain bodily signals, such as smells, sounds, or touch, become reminders of early helplessness and quickly set off impulsivity and dissociation. When activated, women with third-degree mother hunger struggle to soothe themselves or identify something or someone who could. Deep in their bones, women with disorganized attachment believe no one is safe. Living this way requires some form of self-medicating. Judy Garland and Edith Piaf both use drugs, alcohol, and romance to numb the pain of their childhood. In spite of health problems, loss of respect, and trouble singing, their addictions escalated. Their stories aren't unique. Most women with disorganized attachment work too much, spend too much, or eat too much. Some deprive themselves of basic needs. Fleeting emotional highs mask the pain of not belonging anywhere or to anyone. Generally, their first experience of human safety and genuine warmth comes from a professional who is trained to work with complex developmental trauma. Dissociation. When a threat exceeds our coping abilities, nature protects us from overwhelming fear through the body and mind mercifully taking us away from reality. Dissociation, a parasympathetic process of down-regulating the nervous system in response to impending danger, is a survival reaction. We literally and temporarily leave awareness as our breathing slows down and we become immobile. This is nature's way of preparing for death. It's not a conscious process, it's automatic. Dissociation happens when we feel there is no other option in the face of a threat. As infants or children, the reality of a frightening mother presents us with an impossible dilemma. The person who could soothe our fear is causing it. The only way to cope is to disappear. When maternal threats are constant, so is dissociation. Dissociation becomes a way to hide from intolerable things that are happening, as we saw in Caroline's session with me. Dissociating might feel like tunnel vision, a hazy sense of time, a tingling in the ears, or a dreamlike sense of being someone else or somewhere else. One of my favorite descriptions of dissociation is from Marissa Corbell's article in Harper's Bazaar called "Sometimes You Make Your Rapist Breakfast." She says, quote, "Dissociation sounds scary, but it doesn't feel bad. Sometimes it feels like sliding into a warm, cozy bed, a secret, safe place where I can stay as long as I want. It's the coming back that breaks me open. That's when I always want to cry." This is why many women avoid healing third-degree mother hunger. The lurking avalanche of fear is just too awful. Third-degree mother hunger comes from relational fear without relational repair. During our formative years, fear without repair creates lifelong changes in the brain. Herein lies the essence of complex trauma. When a mother can't acknowledge, apologize for, and amend her harm, fear changes a child's brain functions, leaving her with a blurred sense of identity and vague feelings about reality.
See?
Dissociating protected you when you needed it, but the habit makes past events difficult to recall. Rest assured, your body holds the story.
Our
Quote,
body holds our trauma.
"Cognitive processing is inextricably linked with our bodies. All early relational dynamics with primary caregivers, traumatic or non-traumatic, serve as blueprints for the child's developing cognition and belief systems. And these belief systems influence the posture, structure, and movement of the body. Tucked away from conscious awareness, like it or not, the memoir of your life is in your body. silently informing physical and mental well-being, trying to get your attention through body aches, regular nightmares, and chronic anxiety. At the mercy of a cold, aggressive, or abandoning mother, a daughter must believe that her mother will change.
We want to believe.
Dissociation permits this persistent hope, almost like a fantasy. As children, some of you created imaginary friends, different parents, or a charming prince to buffer your fear. Fantasizing is a powerful way to endure intolerable feelings when there is no escape. When danger is ongoing, dissociation goes into overdrive. Nature's merciful design, keeping you from having to reckon with overwhelming reality, hides data that could be useful, such as information about how to detect a dangerous person. When the dangerous person is your mother, what good is the information? Since you couldn't leave her,
Right.
your brain constrains awareness with an emotional eye patch. In this way, dissociation is a lifesaver. When we're helpless, dissociation buffers unbearable reality, but it also creates a division between the self that is going through life, attending school, learning to read, making friends, or playing sports, and the self that is holding unexpressed fear, shame, and anger. In essence, we divide into parts. We have an external self who goes through the motions of life, and an internal self who's hiding. Sometimes we don't know which self is real. Anticipatory trauma, rehearsing how to cope with the next spanking or coming home from school or the next drink mom pours, explains why fear may cause immobility. Feeling slow, stuck, or frozen is the body's way of preparing for assault. In addition to dissociating or daydreaming, the brain buffers fear and powerlessness by freezing, preparing for death. Working together, dissociation and paralysis prepare the body for unavoidable pain. Betrayal blindness. In spite of decades of evidence that a mother can't or won't change harmful behaviors, daughters cling to hope. I call this pathological hope. Pathological hope starts as a protective measure, a way to endure adversity. But over time, pathological hope may keep women stuck in painful relational cycles with others. Most don't notice the nature of pathological hope because the brain adapted so early. Daughters of abusive mothers have been fighting to be noticed, fighting to be protected, fighting to be nurtured, and fighting for an apology most of their lives. Pathological hope has amazing staying power. The enduring nature of wishful thinking could relate to the psychological phenomenon known as betrayal blindness. Jennifer Frey, PhD, has spent years researching the complex biological processes that explain why some of us get stuck in abusive relationships. Freud coined the term betrayal blindness to explain how adults can forget or simply not know when we're being hurt in an intimate relationship. She explains that, quote, because we're dependent on the betrayer, our next best defense is to block out awareness of the betrayal. In other words, a kind of mental freeze, betrayal blindness, is our next best option. End of quote. Freud helps us understand how this psychological adaptation to danger is based on an extreme need to keep a situation intact, whether, quote, maintaining a marriage, keeping a family together, or holding on to one's position in a community, end of quote. It's logical that betrayal blindness helps a child survive a frightening mother. Blindness serves the greater purpose of attachment. Since the needs of human attachment override defensive needs, the biological mechanisms that let us bond with a scary mother become part of our personality. A survival personality with little self-awareness forms as betrayal blindness protects us from knowing that we have become experts at living with and loving a dangerous person. Blind to our betrayal, we don't realize that loving someone is now fused with pity or duty. We feel sorry for our fragile, abusive mother. Sometimes we comfort her after she loses control, hits us, and feels guilty. Or we feel responsible. We try to save her from an abusive partner or a bill collection agency. We become her protector. Daughters who nurture and protect their mothers are appeasing them. Nature's appease response wires us to behave this way when we have nowhere else to go, creating a bond with our mother in spite of being afraid of her. Quote, children are programmed to be fundamentally loyal to their caretakers, even if they are abused by them. Terror increases the need for attachment, even if the source of comfort is also the source of terror. End of quote. In this way, betrayal becomes wired with love. This is not conscious experience. We don't have control over early adaptations to fear. We need our mother even when she yells at us, pulls our hair, or tells us we're fat. Appeasing an abusive mother sets up a lifetime of relational confusion. And we may find ourselves in one destructive relationship after another. The biology of appeasement. Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory, like Dr. Shelley Taylor's tendon befriend theory, explains how our social nervous system is built to bond with others, especially during adversity. This is a human response to fear. We need to befriend when we are threatened by someone or something. The inherent tragedy of third-degree mother hunger is that the mother is the adversity. And if mom is dangerous, a daughter will bond to her. Befriending and appeasing behaviors keep a daughter near her mother. Appeasing emerges from hopeless terror, from knowing that there is nowhere else to go. This is not a choice. This is biology. Biological responses to danger are meant for emergencies, not for routine survival, and certainly not to endure a frightening mother. Maternal cruelty brings on the emergency response system, rapidly changing the daughter's developing brain architecture. High levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, damage brain regions meant for social interaction. For those of you interested in the brain, you may already know how stress impacts the temporal lobe, specifically the amygdala and the hippocampus. Stress irritates the functioning of the amygdala where empathy develops. Cortisol poisons the hippocampus, which makes sense of incoming data and memory processing. The brain is adapting, keeping the necessary biological processes going, like our heartbeat and breathing, but filtering out less critical processes like memory and empathy. During a stressful event or moment, the brain literally ignores information secondary to survival. Over time, unused brain neurons and synaptic connections disappear. Scientists call this sophisticated neurological process pruning. Imagine for a moment what the brain must do to ignore and eventually prune the neurological processes that identify a dangerous mother. It must compartmentalize fear somewhere outside your consciousness so that bonding can happen. Over time, the brain shrinks danger signals, like a mother's shrill voice or furrowed brow, so you can tolerate her proximity. Pruning alters perception and protects you when you're small and dependent, but over time, your innate ability to detect or discern risky situations is twisted. In this way, neuroception is altered, which is why exposure to early betrayal puts you at greater risk of further victimization. Maternal abuse is a devastating betrayal because not only do you miss out on essential nurturance, protection, and guidance, but your neuroception and protective instincts are also damaged. Since you are adapted to danger, situations that would frighten a regular person don't raise a red flag for you. You know how to bond with others who may betray you.
Mm-hmm.
You might even be bored by people who don't.
I know
Toxic
I would.
shame. The toxic shame that results from maternal abuse convinces us we're defective. This is not the kind of shame that you feel when you hurt someone's feelings or the shame that tells you it's not a good idea to flirt with your sister's partner. Toxic shame makes you question your right to be here. Toxic shame mires your soul in a tar pit of insecurity. My hope is that understanding third-degree mother hunger will reduce the shame you're carrying. You aren't defective or broken. Toxic shame is an inherited type of shame that has nothing to do with you. You could be carrying shame that belongs to your mother, like the shame she didn't feel when she mistreated you. Carried shame feels heavy and thick, like an unwanted dirty blanket you can't get out from under. Relational psychotherapist and author Patricia DeYoung says toxic shame is, quote, lodged somewhere deeper than words, a sickness of the soul with even less form than a feeling, end of quote. For this reason, it's hard to identify or discuss toxic shame. Over time, toxic shame fuels forms of self-abuse like cutting, starving, addiction, and isolation. Sometimes, toxic shame masquerades as pseudo-competence or an inflated sense of superiority, a cover-up for feeling awful. You feel pathetic, but you certainly don't want anyone to know.
Right?
So you're quick to judge others before they judge you. For a minute, this makes you feel better until you eat a package of Girl Scout cookies behind a closet door or get drunk at the company party and behave poorly. Afterward, the voice that says, I am disgusting and useless and no one should ever talk to me again, starts talking. And it usually sounds like your mother. But remember,
Mm-hmm.
your personality developed to survive your mother's lack of care. It's not your true self. Specialized treatment. Palliative care, specialized treatment for difficult health issues, focuses on providing relief rather than a cure. I think of third-degree mother hunger as a difficult health issue, and a palliative care paradigm gives me a compass for supporting women with third-degree trauma. I look to the work that's being done at Reconnect, Dr. Carol Darce's treatment facility that incorporates diverse approaches for survivors, where adults receive care throughout the day, and sessions may include art therapy, mindfulness, brain spotting, or EMDR. Each person has an opportunity for a psychiatric evaluation, as medication can be life-saving for third-degree mother hunger. Palliative care is best when teams work together, as they do in Darce's program, and when it includes holistic curative treatments in addition to traditional ones. Healing third-degree mother hunger requires support from well-trained professionals who understand complex trauma, attachment, and sensory motor therapy. Pat Ogden, Ruth Lanius, and Janina Fisher have developed methods to access and heal body memory that is deeper than words.
That's
Next
what I
steps
need.
for survivors of third-degree mother hunger. Healing third-degree mother hunger is a twofold process. First, you find words for the speechless terror you felt as a child. You're doing this right now. Listening to this audiobook gives you language for the disorganized heartbreak you've endured for so long. Second, if you haven't done so already, it's time to stop reaching for your mother, rest your weary soul, and grieve what was lost. In order for this to work, you need the company of someone who understands this unique pain and or a clinician trained in and dedicated to healthy attachment. Your pain emerged from relational trauma, and it will only heal with healthy relational experiences. As you uncover implicit memory, which can happen, the story of your mother's care will bring a greater capacity to love and protect yourself going forward. Healing involves integrating implicit memories and forming a coherent narrative about your relationship with her. As you gain awareness, new behaviors may be necessary to protect yourself. For some of you, divorcing your mother will be part of healing this third-degree burn. You might start with a 30-day separation, disconnecting from contact via phone, text, social media, anywhere she can see or connect with you. As you practice new boundaries, creating safety for yourself, you are essentially coming out of a dissociative trance that you've been in most of your life.
Mm-hmm.
Emerging from constant dissociation means facing buried emotions. This is a good time to remember what your goal is. You're building secure attachment within yourself that was lost in your formative years. You're creating an internal home where you are safe and loved. In the healing process, it's normal to feel terrified, angry, and very much alone. If you sometimes feel like a bad daughter, I hope this chapter stops that kind of thinking and relieves your burden. Keep in mind that others have walked this journey before you, paving the way to a new steady sense of self without the constant disappointment, heartache, and betrayal that comes from unhealthy maternal contact. As your body feels safe, overall emotional reactivity diminishes. You'll recover faster after a nightmare or an argument with someone you love. Gradually, dissociation loses its hold on you. Your suffering diminishes. And with the help of a trusted guide, you will build relational resilience. The heartache that has been your constant companion takes a break. In this new brain space, you can make better decisions about how and when to contact your mother and whether contact is possible at all. Living with untreated third-degree mother hunger is living with trauma. Facing it can feel risky and scary. Blocking pain is the brain's compassionate response to trauma. It compartmentalizes the memory, but it also makes life colorless and dull. And feeling authentic joy or finding meaning is a struggle. Now that you have more awareness, healing can go deeper. You're beginning to reclaim lost maternal care as you release buried emotions and experience new warmth with others.
Okay, that's the end of chapter 8. Chapter 9 is going to be the start of healing mother hunger. And we'll start this on Sunday. I'm going to skip tomorrow. I'm going to take the day off. I need to go shopping because I'm going out of town. And I don't have any clothes to wear. I mean, I do, but they're all like dog grooming clothes. So I'm going to buy a couple of cute dresses and call it a day. So we'll start back on Sunday with chapter 9. I think we can probably get through chapter 9 and chapter 10 on Sunday if I start at 6 instead of 7. Because actually, I think it'd be okay if I started at 7. No, let's start at 6:30 because chapter 9 is an hour and then chapter 10 is like 20 minutes. So if I start at 6:30, then that'll get us done by 8:30 at the latest. And then we can talk about what everyone thought about this book. I've learned so much. I definitely do think that it is a book that I need to read more than once, though, because of there's so much information in it. There's just no way that I'm going to be able to process everything and actually retain all the information because there's just so much to go through. It is an amazing book, and I'm so glad that I decided to get this. I don't know if I saw this myself and decided to purchase it, or if somebody recommended this book to me. I cannot remember. But if somebody recommended it to me, I am so glad that they did. I got food in my teeth. All right, well, let me go so I can go ahead and get in the shower. I will see you all Sunday. Yes, Sunday at 6:30 p.m. I'll see you then.